The Convergence is back.
Cobra la 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 la.
And that sound means it's the start of another Missal for the masses. I'm your host, Gary.
And I'm Casey.
And I'm Jim, the Joe Junkie.
And this is the Chaps Assistance Motor Pod. This is the podcast that's centered around the vehicles, playsets, and even trailers of the G.I. Joe of Real American Hero toy line from 1982 to the present day. We also talk G.I. Joe and connected comics, and sometimes figures in other military and adventure toy lines and comic books. So with Casey and I today is Jim Missal from the Longbox Crusade Network. And Jim, welcome to the show. There's always a few questions I like to ask of anybody that's coming on the show. But first off, tell us a little bit about your podcast and what you guys have been doing.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Gary and Casey. Yeah, G.I. Joe Outpost, G.I. Joe Chronicles Outpost we are chronologically going through from 82 all the way through, and we're covering in different episodes the comics, toys, cartoons with different hosts. And as I started, I'm slowing down, covering less material each episode, so it's going a little bit better. But no, it's just getting everybody on and having a good time talking about Joe.
Yep, and you had me on recently. Gosh, only knows when that episode's coming about. I know the Longbox Crusade likes to record months in advance. So, but one thing I always ask, do you have a favorite vehicle, playset, or trailer?
If I only had to pick one, wow. Probably the Tactical Battle Platform would be my favorite from 1985. That one, I remember getting that one as a kid. I like the water stuff. You can utilize it on land if you need to. So that would probably, if I only had to pick one, that would be it.
That's a solid choice. I have mine, perched next to my flag. Yeah, it's just a great toy.
Yeah, I've got mine perched just like yours, perched next to the flag, but I made 3D printed connectors. So I've got my legs double stacked. So it's higher up. So it's almost level with the flag. And my flag has got I put another layer underneath. So they're both higher up.
Oh, that's a sweet setup. So, all right. Well, the next thing we talk about on the Chops Supporter Pod is we go around the room and we just talk about what's going on in our lives of collecting. So, Casey, let's start with you. What's going on in your life of collecting since we last chatted?
Well, made a couple purchases. Probably shouldn't have made, but I did anyway. I got in, and I know only you two can see it. I got in my Masterverse Panther. It was a Mattel exclusive for New Eternia. And I did order, thanks to you, let me know that it was available. I got the Ramar and Fatal Fluffy coming from Super 7. Got them both together, so it was only 20 a piece, 40, first time buyer. Even though it wasn't, it said click it there for free shipping. I'm like, sure, why not? And they gave me free shipping.
Have they come in yet?
No.
Okay.
I did the tracking, I think Tuesday.
Yeah, mine says Wednesday. Yeah. I'm excited. I got 3 fluffies coming in, but I'm getting a little bit ahead. Jim, do you have anything going on in your life of collecting?
Yeah, as if you've listened to my show, you know I'm a little bit of a hoarder, flipper, collector, whatever you want to call it. And I was sitting eating my dessert, my ice cream, one couple nights ago and look on there and somebody's got a whole bag of G.I. Joe figures for $20. And I'm like, yeah, surely that's not going to happen, right? So I clicked. It was on Marketplace. Anyway, ended up going to get them, and there was quite a few figures in there with pieces and parts. There was the Fridge, Serpentor, Sergeant Slaughter, a bunch of them for $20. So I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I took advantage of the Walmart sale that went on earlier this week for classified figures and ended up getting the Crimson Alley Viper, Big Ben, and Night Force Tunnel Rat for, I think with shipping it was free shipping, so $45. So
Yeah, solid deals.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, yeah, like Casey said, I also got my Super 7 Reaction Plus figures on order. And then actually, I was listening to the Longbox Crusade. They did a Posicast on Howard the Duck. So I started reading the original Howard the Duck series from 1976. And all I can say is, aside from the satire that Steve Gerber, the writer, is, the art by far is way better than it ever needed to be on this book. And it has a G.I. Joe connection because it's Lealoa did the inks on all the book, and it looks really good. And he was the inker for the silent issue. So that's the tie in there. So, all right, with that done, let's start talking about tonight's topic. It's 1986's Stun. And this is a vehicle Casey's actually been kind of like nudging me for. And if you're a longtime listener, this was covered on Missal number 2 of the Chatham Sisters Motor Pod. And when Jim was coming on, and I was thinking about some things to cover, and I was looking through some of the older Missals to see something that might need a newer, fresher look. As you know, we are nearing now. This is Missal number 90, and this is really the countdown to 100. And there'll be more on that after the review. But really, trying to do some good things for the next 10 Missals. And bringing Jim is one of those things, and talking about the Stun is another one of those things. And Casey's along for the ride as long as he wants to be here. So we're going to start talking about 1986's Cobra Stun. The first thing we do when we are reviewing a toy, we look at how it was presented for the consumer, for the child, in 1986 and 1987 on store shelves. So, Jim, would you mind taking us through the front of the G.I. Joe box?
Sure thing. I can do that. So on the front, you've got the picture. I believe that's, yes, what's his name? Hector Garrido art. And you have the vehicle in all its black glory with what I see as a good cross sell of figures from 1984 to the current year of 1986, with the Televiper on the back, the Motor Viper driving, Crimson Guard, and one of the split pods, I guess you'd call it, for the Stun, and of course the bare-chested Dr. Mindbender. And with the contrast of the red and black, you've got, reminds me a little bit of the Stinger there. So that's probably what I would relate to the closest of another vehicle. But as reading this, the description on it, and I'm sure you'll get to it later, was a high-speed Sentry vehicle. So there's another vehicle that it could call back to as well. But that's what I see.
Yeah, Casey, you got anything to add about this beautiful painted artwork?
No, I think Jim hit it. Another fantastic Hector Garrido. I mean, I like all the characters on there. So I think the Motor Viper's underrated.
I agree.
I was on a show a couple weeks ago, and I was watching it, and they picked the Motor Viper as one of the worst characters for that year. I'm like, I don't see it.
No, yeah, that's wrong.
Yeah,
No.
everything's opinion, but I've got 3 on my Stein, so I need 4 actually, but I only have 3.
They're easy to army build because I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know if there was a bunch of them made or what, but you can find them just about everywhere.
Yeah, it's very. I think at one point I had like almost 20 of them, and it wasn't because I was hunting motor vipers. It was just like either every kid had the stun, or I and Jim, maybe you know, but wasn't it a mail away figure too, like a part of the driver pack, like later on in the series?
Possibly, I remember. They had a driver's pack later on. What early '90s that they might have came out in.
Yeah, yeah. But one thing I want to point out on the artwork is Garrido made sure to paint the 3 foot pegs on the rear fender.
I was going to mention that too.
So I think that's just funny. But overall it's it's a nice 3/4 view, a nice isometric. The Crimson Guardsman looks a little bit hunched, and he's shooting a little bit up, and Dr. Mindbender is shooting a little straight ahead. And yeah, it's just you got the digital explosion on the background. And one thing as I'm revisiting this, I expected stun to be an acronym, but I don't see any periods between the S, the T, the U, and the N. So
yeah. You'd think it'd have something. They always have something.
correct. And then we'll just go over to the back of the box.
With that, sorry, Gary. With that,
No,
that sticker on the side, that white sticker. What is that? Cobra? Like I don't know if we can make it out easier or not. Okay, I see it. It's like a dual Cobra head with 3 wheels. I've never noticed that before.
does
Huh.
does your stun have the decals on it, Jim?
No, this one, the one I have out, is clean. Doesn't have any decals on it. So,
That's always a treat when you get a GI Joe toy that the kid just did not do the stickers on.
yes.
All right, we're going to go around to the back of the box where we get a little bit of the cross sell, and I'm just going to go around and so Cobra Stun, a Cobra Command weapon. So this high-speed sentry hastens Cobra to his attack position. It's based on Cobra Command's top secret designs, including some of the most sophisticated technology in Cobra's weapons arsenal. We have the seat guns elevate. We have removable engine lids. The rear gun pivots. We have rolling wheels. Forward pods pivot to firing positions. And then, as always, we have super realistic detail and sturdy construction for rugged play. We also have 3 flag points, and it carries up to 11 figures. And per yojoe.com, this originally retailed at $6.69. So about the same price as 3 G.I. Joe figures.
What a deal.
It's definitely on the more affordable side of vehicles for 1986. I put this like almost in line with the Havoc. Casey, do you see anything on the back of the box that you want to point out?
It looks so nice and clean compared to mine. Mine needs a good bath. It's all dusty. I get to dust my toys. What I like about the stun is just the fact that it's not realistic at all. I love that. Cobra vehicles should be like that. And yeah, I didn't have it as a kid, so when I got it, I just loved it.
Yeah, I agree. Cobra vehicles should be a little more unrealistic or crazy than the Joe vehicles.
I got this for Christmas, so I did not pick this out myself. Uh, but I will definitely tell you, 1980s, that is the era of the ATC, the three wheelers, where you got one wheel in front, two wheels in the back, known for tip overs. I remember little like flyers in my elementary school for don't ride on the ATCs. These are dangerous, and I remember, and this just like was like one of those things that just screams, it just screams mid 1980s, aesthetic and common sense. And that's exactly what Cobra had always had, safety. Yeah. What is it? But the other thing too, when we look on the back of the box, is we also got, this is kind of a prototype unit. So a couple things one big thing I've noticed that's different than the actual production piece is the engine lids on the back of the box are black plastic, whereas on the production piece they'd be colored red.
Yeah, I noticed that also.
Before we get to the blueprints, we still have to talk about the Motor Viper. So the Motor Viper is from 1986 as well. He's basically a blue Cobra. He's got, different shades of blue with black and silver highlights, swivel arm battle grip, ball neck, typical construction for 1986. He's got a black holster with a silver pistol on both of his legs. And, he's just got some nice piping of hoses around his torso. And he's kind of got like a silver V in the center of his dark blue breastplate. The breastplate continues to over his shoulders. And then we have like a light blue, like undershirt underneath. His pants are mostly that same light blue with some dark blue accents over his thighs, and his boots with, it appears to be gaiters. And then, of course, he's got a dark blue helmet with a big silver visor and, just like a light blue accent. So, like a solid Cobra Blue army builder.
I mean, I really like how everything works. The blues, with the black and the silver, and the face mask just screams Cobra of this time period. But I'm sitting here looking at mine and really need to touch up their face masks because they are only one of them's good out of three. But that's the big thing with like the Cobra Commanders and not so much the Vipers. I think the Vipers always turned out okay. It's just the paint rubbing off. My my Motor Vipers has been well played with.
Casey mentioned earlier, I think they're underrated. They're probably definitely in my top 10 Vipers that I have or that are around. And just the color. The helmet reminds me of what were those on the Death Star? The troopers that were shot the laser. They had those helmets that kind of looked that half helmet there, half visor. But
Half the audience is screaming at us right now because
I
we're a
know.
bunch of G.I. Joe nerds.
Yeah, well, I don't know Star Wars that well, but I've seen it a few times. Okay, a lot. I've seen it a lot, but
yeah. So yeah, I don't like Casey. I've had a whole bunch of these, and like it's weird. This is like more often than not, the silver's pretty good, but I think placing the Motor Viper on the very top of this vehicle, just begs for getting bashed in play. So maybe that's why it doesn't survive as well as the 1986 Vipers.
But do you notice on the file card the stun does have the dots behind, like it is for something?
good catch, Casey.
Yep. All right. All right, cool. So let's go on and talk more about the Motor Viper with the file card. Codename Motor Viper, Cobra Stun, like Casey just pointed out, now an acronym, driver. The Motor Viper Corps attracts the type of individual who, without the benefit of education and ambition, might have joined the Dreadnoks. The Cobra Recon and Perimeter Defense Forces are disciplined, efficient, and highly motivated. This is fairly surprising, seeing that the force seems to be comprised of the type that enjoys driving at high speeds and finds amusement in danger. As far as we can figure, the Motor Vipers don't get paid any better than the Ground Vipers and Sea Vipers, nor do they receive any special privileges or benefits. They have their own distinctive uniform, but it's no flashier than the rest. Why then would a Cobra volunteer for such an obviously hazardous duty assignment unless it was the danger itself that appealed to him? Jim, any thoughts on the file card?
Yeah, I like that they include in there that they're the part of the recon and perimeter defense forces, because that's what those vehicles are for. There's not much armor, so are they really? I know they used it in battle in the cartoons and stuff, but to me, it would be more of a recon or a perimeter or something like that vehicle. And that's what they use the Motor Vipers for. So.
All right. And Casey, you got any thoughts from this file card?
They say they don't pay him anymore, but I'm trying to think back to the Marvel run, and Roadblock and them found the barracks for normal Cobra troopers, and they had like all this luxury stuff. So I'm sure they get paid enough. But as far as the stun goes, I mean, yeah, perimeters and stuff. But it looks like a fast attack kind of thing, hit and run kind of vehicle. If I had it as a kid, that's how I would play with it.
Yeah, I can say that the big thing I notice is the fact that they mentioned Ground Vipers and Sea Vipers.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering. So we got the Viper in 1986. Now, was that to lead to a Ground Viper and a Sea Viper? I mean, we had the Eels the previous year, so I'm just curious. What they were doing at that point. I mean, this would be a Larry Hama file card in 1986, so planning for the future or something.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the Ground Vipers and the Motor Vipers have the TM or trademark next to them, so they were planning on something. And I wonder if the Sea Vipers got changed to a different name later on in whatever it was created, because we had the Hydro Vipers in '88.
Yep.
So that would have been later. As far as Ground Vipers, yeah, I don't know why they had, like you said, they had the regular Vipers in '88. So
It's just nice to see this stuff, like, because they're trying to tell a story through the toy, and it's just it's just interesting to see where things evolve. What made it to print, and then, oh well, we're just not going to worry about it. And it's just nice to look at it with a different lens than just being excited to have the toy. And but when you get the toy, you have to build the toy, and that's what you have the blueprints for. And not only were the blueprints the instructions for building the toy, they also came with talking points for the toy. And before we get into just talking about it, we're going to go over the blueprints, of which there's only 13 talking points. So this should move along pretty quickly. And Casey and Jim, just chime in after I say something as you see fit. Number one, we have the Chariot type battle armor wheel shields.
very ornate. Got the big Cobra logo on there.
Yeah, I like the fact that they have also the bolts that go all the way around. And the other thing too is, like, it's not really a hubcap. It's a cover that stays stationary. So the Cobra logo, if your stun is in good working order, doesn't move at all. The tires revolve around it. It's almost it's a neat effect. It's a neat effect that they did. And then we get to number two, the all-terrain puncture-proof tires. We go to three, the mono wheel extended chassis member. So that's essentially the gray strut that holds the central front tire. We get to number 4, the Blazer twin rotating laser battle cannons. I'll start with this one. As a kid, I was totally a Sunbow kid, and these were lasers. You guys see anything different or play with it different?
No, I mean it looks like laser guns, so that's how I took it.
Yeah, they look like laser guns, but I find it odd. Twin rotating laser battle cannons. That I didn't know lasers always rotated. It was almost like it was had to reload or something every time it went around. By the sounds of it,
Yeah, no, I mean it could just be for the fact that they go up and down, so that'd be elevation. But then again, I'm always like critical of lasers because that means lasers are point and shoot, so you don't have to, you don't have to take into account range or anything. You just point and shoot. So, um, this could be these could be used for ground attack, so taking out other infantry, other vehicles, tank killer, havoc killer, or you can just aim it to the sky and shoot down sky strikers and conquest X-30s. So just an interesting, things you can do with lasers. And then we get to number 5. We have the cannon control monitors slash optics sensors. That's basically the detail on the top of the laser. And then we get to 6, the twin Cobra battle flags, shown prominently.
the part that nobody has on their stun. Those flags are
Yeah.
hard to find.
I got 2 stumps.
Yeah, I think the stun is the origin of red plastic syndrome. Yeah, I don't remember it being fragile as a kid, but it is fragile as an adult. More on that in a little bit. We get to number 7, the cannon control battle command seats. So these are the red seats inside each pod. And then we go to 8, the separating boron epoxy battle shells. So that's what the pods are called. We get to number 9, the concealed polysac fuel cells. Basically, it's pointing to where the engine cover is, and that's where you put your diesel or gasoline. Number 10, you get the rearward battle command driver seat. So this is similar to a lot of toys from 1986 where the character just sits right up there, perched on top.
Hey, shoot me.
Just like the Havoc in Cross Country.
Right.
Triple T and Sergeant Slaughter.
True. Yeah.
And I think that's, we speak about all 3 of those vehicles. The Havoc got a little bit of play in the comic book, not a lot, but I really can't think of too many times the stun was in the comic or the Triple T. So, that might have something to do with it.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen the Triple T in a comic book.
I don't think so. Not that I can recollect.
I'm sure I've seen it done once or twice, but I'm pretty sure I've never seen the Triple T.
I bet the stun saw more. Well, the stun was used a little bit in the comics.
Yeah.
And at least the during the battle of Cobra Island with the Cobra Civil War.
Yeah.
I thought Serpentor used those.
Yes.
So, but
In the cartoon, didn't they have them when they Pythonized them? Didn't they show them then?
Yeah. They also showed him like in the very beginning of Rise. I mean, it was all over 1986. Yeah. It was like almost. It basically replaced the hiss for 1986, and I remember the one where they just surround the Joes and they're going around like circling the wagons.
Yeah.
And they take one of the what do they call them? The boron epoxy battle shells, and they just pivot one inside to the circle, and they're just shooting all the time as they go around and around in a circle.
They were doing a great job on showing kids how they can play with their toys.
Yep.
Absolutely. Casey's pup agrees. So we go from number 10 to number 11, the rearward personal storage platform. Basically, seats 2 at the back of the Stun. No seat belts. Seat belts weren't a thing for Cobra in 1986.
This reminds me of, and I'm not sure, Gary, if you're old enough, but I think Casey is, of the station wagons. The old station wagons had seats in the back where you could sit and face backwards. That's
Yeah.
what that reminds me of.
Yeah, my aunt and uncle had one that we kind of just like laid down in the back and just looked out the window. I mean, you can't do that nowadays, but it was fun.
I don't know if you remember, Jim. My dad had one. It was a Subaru Brat with the rearward facing plastic bucket seats in the back, but those had seat belts.
Yeah, barely seats, but it had seat belts.
One step up from Cobra, but Subaru was thinking. We get to number 12, the side-mounted personnel platform fender, aka the place where you can put 3 figures on each side because there's 3 foot pegs. We're going to finish up with number 13, the round-off circular magazine 9mm machine gun.
Basically a mounted Tommy gun.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, but I've never put 3 Cobras on each side of that before. I just don't. Not much they can do there, you know?
That'd be a tight fit.
It would be.
It looks goofy in retrospect, but I did it. This was the only thing left after our battle, and everybody's riding out on the Cobra Stun. The flag's flying high because it's 1986, 87, and they haven't broken yet. It looks goofy now, but back in the day, this was a fun toy.
Oh, I'm sure I would have did it if I had it as a kid playing, 100%. But at 52, I'm looking at it thinking, oh, how are they going to stay up there?
I'm afraid to put any figures on foot pegs right now.
Yeah.
Overall, it's a nice, tight, blueprint with specifications. And really now, we've mentioned some uses in the comics and the cartoons. Anywhere else you guys think of the Stun made an impression? I'm thinking of the movie.
Yeah, my spot was, as Gary mentioned, in the season 2, episode 1, where they're surrounding the Joes on their base, and then in the Himalayas with the BET in the movie, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I probably need to watch the movie again. It's been a long time. Now that
Podcast idea.
Yeah, now that I don't hate Cobra Law so much.
Well, with the Energon universe reintroducing Cobra Law and making them a little more palatable. Right. I went and rewatched the movie recently, so
yeah.
All right, so we've basically finished with 3D Joes. Thank you, Carson from Texas, for that excellent resource and providing images that are easily shareable using screen sharing software. The one other thing I wanted to point out before I close that I noticed. So on 3D Joes, we pointed out that Stun was an acronym, but that's because they're using the 1988 mail-away file card. They're not using the file card from the back of the box, which does not have the periods designating it an acronym.
Yeah, I noticed that too, but I didn't know if you wanted to bring it up or not. I saw that 1988 on there, and I'm like, huh. So, yep.
We've talked about media. We've talked about the toy. We've talked a little bit about how we play with it. So the way it was presented, I think in 1986, it was mostly the counterpart to the Havoc. But now that we have a full breadth of the GI Joe line, what would you compare it to on the GI Joe side? I have some ideas, but I would like to hear you. Casey, if you'd like to go first, something you think it's equivalent to or would serve a purpose as.
All Striker. That's the first thing that comes to my head. I think you can take the stun anywhere. Maybe not into Antarctica or somewhere that's all ice and snow, but I think you can take it to the desert. You can take it to anywhere else. I wish I had this as a kid. I think I would have had a lot of fun with it. But I would say All Striker.
A Joe equivalent? Man, I think, as you said, overall, I think the Desert Fox would have been a good comparison or counterpart to it. Fast attack. It's got the extra seating in the back. Little, all terrain type of thing. So I think the Desert Fox would be a good counterpart for it.
Okay. Twice as many wheels.
Yes.
Well, GI Joe did have a 3-wheeler, a backpack 3-wheeler. So I'm gonna be the lone guy and choose that. And I wish I could think of which one it was. Those pull up and wind up vehicles.
One of the action pack ones. Yeah.
Yeah, it folds up and then becomes somebody's backpack.
Yes. I think did they have Spearhead on that one in the ads? I've seen Spearhead on it for some reason. But yeah, that's not one I'm searching to find. 88 vehicles, motorized vehicle packs.
Yes, the GI Joe ATV.
Oh, it's Muskrat.
It's Muskrat.
Yeah. It's got it on his back. Wow. Oh, there it is. It's the other vehicle that Spearhead's riding. Whatever that is. The tank car that Spearhead's riding.
Yeah. I love the tank car. I have my my upstairs airtight. He's just waving from it as he's riding on. He's like one of the little Shriners.
I like the scuba pack. That one, I've got a couple of those.
Yeah, scuba pack's underrated.
Yes, that one's pretty cool.
But yeah, so all right, so things to watch out for on the stun. So you might have heard earlier in this podcast, Casey and Jim complaining about the flags.
Yes.
But basically, all the red plastic, the rear gun, and the engine covers, all four or five of those red pieces are commonly missing / broken. They do sell reproductions on eBay, and you can find them probably on Etsy or Mercari or your other online marketplace of choice.
I actually have a Python stun. I have the flags for that one, but I don't have them displayed with the flags. They're in a baggie.
Yeah, if the flags cannot be removed without breaking them. Once they're into the shell, that's it. They're done. They can't be taken out without breaking the tab on the bottom that keeps them in place. They're not like they're bigger than the Awe Strikers where you can take the antennas out for storage, but on the stun you can't take them out. I found that one out the hard way.
Yeah, I don't think my Python one, you can tell they'd never been put in before. So I'm not putting them in unless I sell it. Even then, I'll give the guy the option if he wants to keep it or not.
I'll ask you because you have the Python. How does the yellow plastic hold up compared to the red?
I think it holds up better than the red. So I haven't really had any issues with the tabs on anything. Like I said, the flags have not been put in on my Python one, but the tabs on the hubcaps and the red and the motor covers don't seem to be as bad a shape as red ones.
All right. Other thing to watch out for is the clamshell for the pods. Those sometimes separate over time. The plastic warps and deforms, and then your laser cannons can't stay in place.
I'll be good.
I know we're recording this right after Valentine's Day.
Well, yeah, well.
We are talking, we are a bunch of group of middle-aged men.
Well, his tank had the same issues. They were those cannons always droop too. So
I've had issues in the past with a couple other things breaking. I've had the handles for the Motor Viper. I've had a couple of those broken off. And then also if the tires get dirty, gummy or whatever, I've had them break the tabs for the hubcaps or the wheel plates off too.
they kind of stick to the hubcaps, is what you're saying, a little bit.
Yep.
Yep.
And Casey, you got anything you want to add to it?
My stun's in pretty good shape except for the flags. Even whoever had us originally put the decals on all nice, which is a rarity. They all look really good. Most of my complaints are with just all the paint rub on the Motor Vipers, like the top of their helmets, faceplates, hands. But no, my stun's in pretty good shape.
Oh, that's cool. This is the weirdest thing. So I still have residue, and I haven't finished cleaning it off. And I've had it for probably 5 years now. I haven't finished cleaning off the sticker from the thrift store where this came from, with the flags attached
That's a good find.
Yeah, that's crazy.
at a thrift store.
Yeah.
I think it was Savers because they use the bigger tags than Goodwill.
Yeah, I think I got mine at Kentuckiana a few years ago.
I picked mine up at we have an online auction place here, not far away from where I live, and there was a comic book or toy store that went out of business, and I picked mine up in a big box of stuff from that. So,
oh, that's cool. So yeah, and Kentuckiana is cool because Casey gets to go all those cool shows.
yeah, I can go too, but I got to drive 6 hours.
Yeah, it's like an hour and 20 for me.
I have to fly there.
To be fair, though, Joe Fest is 9 hours away from me.
Joe Fest is like a 20-hour drive if I drove, so that's why I fly.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have no. There's really very few big GI Joe shows near me, and I got to start hunting some medium-sized ones. I think there's one over in Massachusetts. I don't know. So I guess the last thing really to talk about in this thing is crew. Jim, you want to lead us off with besides the Motor Viper, who would you crew?
Well, I'm putting as like on the box a Televiper on there. Then I'm probably going to go with say like a Night Viper maybe, and a Laser Viper.
Solid choices. The Laser Viper also has a nice helmet.
Yep. Then a Night Viper for those after dark missions. Of course, you can put a bunch of other ones on there, so you can have just about every Viper there is on there. But
Okay, Casey.
Yeah, I kind of like to put a Crimson Guard on there. Maybe even Tomax and Xamot and a 2 front. I think I'd look good with them. But I'm just loading it up with Motor Vipers.
Yep. I'll say, both of you guys, great ideas. I think this could be used as like a light infantry vehicle, so you can use your Vipers. It could also be used as a command vehicle, so you can get your Cobra Commander in there, and helmet, 1983 Cobra Commander, or Fred the Seventh Imposter Cobra Commander. They all look good with the Cobra Stun. My big thing is always throwing a bat in the back, because that is not a place you want to sit. But you could also put the bat in the jump seat and then have a Viper just like push him in the back as it's driving, just like poof, just like easy eject.
Like a landmine almost. Just there you go. Push them off.
Right? They'll fire at anything that moves.
Oh yeah.
It's a simple toy. I mean, it's you know, at the $6.69 price point. You know, it's simple, you know, just a few pieces, but still a ton of detail in the command seat, the rear seat. You know, when you pop off the engine covers, when you don't care about your red engine covers not breaking on you, you got wonderful little engine detail underneath those covers. And even when you spread the pods apart on that third member, that for the front wheel, you even got like little spring details and stuff for like a suspension system. So, you know, and then the other thing that I like, uh, you know, with the model aesthetic of a lot of GI Joe vehicles, when you look at the underside, it isn't just a cavity. You do have like differential details and a drive shaft detail. You know, just enough to not make it plain and boring.
Yeah, I'm always impressed with the Joe vehicle, or with what Hasbro did with their vehicles. As you said, they all those things they didn't have to put in, but they did. Well, one of the things I'm customizing what I was working on today was the whale. And I'll explain later what I'm doing, but as I got into it, I'm like, I never realized how much detail was on the inside of the whale that they didn't have to put in there, because most kids aren't going to see that. But it always impressed me with what they hid in the vehicles.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Like nowadays, if they're making it, would they add like different paint to the, let's say, put paint on the motor to be different from the shell? That would be cool. Because the motor looks cool now. Can you imagine if it was painted to look like a motor?
I always think that, you know, part of what Hasbro did was these were basically mini model kits. And I think they were, you know, it didn't explicitly say, but I think they wanted kids to, you know, paint and accentuate these toys, because I don't know, it just there's always seems to be so much, you know, really the early years with Kirk Bazigian at the helm was kind of like a dream team of this group of guys that really enjoyed making this product for kids. It was more than just a job. And you can really see, like, even in this simple vehicle, you know, the effort that went into this.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
One of the things I also like to look at is the era. So this is 1986. 1986 was kind of a pivoting year. Uh, you know, Green Army Men started in 82, and then you have, you know, the Murderers Row, I call it, of 85. And then you have 86, which is just like living off the high of that 1985 year. But it's also the year we get a lot more sci-fi, which, you know, like you said, Casey, you love it when, and Jim, you love it when Cobra goes in that direction.
Oh, yeah.
And this is just like, you know, spearheading those vehicles in that direction.
Yeah, 86. As you mentioned, they literally went sci-fi with the character sci-fi. But 86, you look at, they replaced a lot of the original characters with people with the same specialty. You had Sci-Fi, who was a laser viper, and then Leatherneck was the Marine that replaced Gung Ho, and then, you know, all these other ones that you could sit there. And this, as I think you mentioned earlier, Gary, this replaced the Hiss as the main Sentry, or the high speed Sentry vehicle. So it was kind of that reset year going forward, like you mentioned.
Yeah. But like this fits in the place with the Cobra Arsenal, like the Buzzbore. And, you know, if this was to play against your Battle Force 2000 vehicles, it wouldn't look out of place. Casey, I mean, can you see Iron Grenadiers fighting alongside this?
Oh yeah. I don't know why I didn't even think of that, but yeah.
You put some gold on that thing, it's all Iron Grenadiers.
And Casey, you can pick up shells of these cheap to, paint them Iron Grenadier.
Yeah. I know a shop just about a half hour from me has probably got a bunch of these shells.
I think the Stun is a swell vehicle. I think really we should rate it. What do you think, Casey? What do you think, Jim?
I would give it 3.5 out of 5.
Okay. 3.5 stars out of 5. And Jim, we do use quarter stars, so
See, I was just happy to be able to use halvesies. Unlike, the Longbox Crusade, on Longbox Crusade, you can't use halvesies. So I was just happy to use halvesies. I'm gonna go a 4. Even I think it's in media. It was portrayed very well, and it was so much in the cartoon, and it's just a solid classic. When you think Cobra vehicles, you think an outrageous vehicle like this. So I'm going with the 4.
all right. And Jim, I'm going to echo you. I think this is a solid 4 vehicle. I think it stays that 4 because it is affordable. I think most anybody that collects GI Joe is going to want one, and with the availability of reproduction parts to make it easily displayable and to bring a shell into fighting shape, just keeps it up there with something that you're going to want to display with your Serpentor or your Cobra Commander or Vipers, Dr. Mindbender. It just works so much for a lot of the GI Joe line. And that concludes this Missal for the masses. This has been the Chaplain's Assistance Motor Pod, and thank you for listening. The Chaplain's Assistance Motor Pod is hosted by Spotify for podcasters and is also found on many of the popular podcatchers. Please like, share, review, comment, or otherwise interact with them, as it only helps to improve and grow this podcast. For more Chaplain's Assistance Motor Pod, you can find me on social media at Chaplain Joe Pod on Facebook, Instagram, X, and even YouTube, or you can send an email to chaplainjoepod@gmail.com.
And if you want to reach out to me, you can check out Podcast from Pit on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and email is podcastfromthepit@gmail.com.
And you can find me on Facebook as Jim Miel, JimMiel, or on X as Jim the Joe Junkie, and once a month on the Longbox Crusade, where I host the G.I. Joe Chronicles Outpost.
Yeah, and Jim, thank you for joining us this evening. I've been listening to the Outpost since it began. Just another fine addition to the Longbox Crusade network of shows. Keep it up. Listening to it has been a joy.
I appreciate it. It's your 2 shows, Podcast from the Pit and Chaplain's Assistant Motor Pod. Really, I listened to your guys from the beginning, and then I had other Joe shows. I'm like, you know what? I can do that. And you guys inspired me to get a hold of, or I hosted or guest starred on Chronicles, G.I. Joe Chronicles, and then just kind of went from there. So it's been fun getting to know everybody too.
Yeah, good group of guys.
That's one of the funnest things about doing this is I've met and done shows with people from Australia, New Zealand, and they're huge Joe junkies too.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't think that, but a lot of them know more about Joe than I do.
Is it Joe or Action Force over there?
They got both.
Okay.
Yeah, Casey's like a social butterfly with his show. He's got everybody, and it's a great listen.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a lot of fun.
Good community.
Yes. All right. So the Chaps and Mortar Pod is the strange, but not estranged, nerdy little brother of the Pint, a pop culture podcast. And they're totally not going to stun me for saying that. And with all of that said and done, one final missile for the masses: be decent to one another.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.